Member 83 of the Genius Society, the real master of the space station. An incredibly intelligent yet unsympathetic scientist. Herta is a 4-star ice character that has a very basic kit, which is to do AoE damage. She follows the erudition path. Naturally, as an erudition class character, she will deal AoE damage, making it easier to fight groups of enemies. This includes bosses that keep summoning reinforcements. As an ice character, this means that if Herta is the one who depletes the enemy's toughness bar, she will inflict freeze debuff, which prevents an enemy from acting once, but have their action advanced forward by 50% on their next turn. Freezing mobs is one of the strongest features of Herta, as she will keep preventing them from moving. This reduces a lot of incoming pressure from having too many enemies to fight at a time. For example, fighting the Silvermane Lieutenant or Gepard can be very annoying due to their reinforcements. Same case with the abundant Eben Deer and the roots that it summons. Herta trivializes such enemies as she would easily wipe out their summons. Herta's AoE capabilities is further complemented by her talent, which is her main gimmick. Whenever an enemy drops to 50% HP or lower, she will automatically trigger a follow-up attack that deals AoE damage. There are multiple websites out there that will allow you to read Herta's kit, or you can simply log into the game and check Herta's ability and trace descriptions. I will only talk about important topics. Herta's kit is already very simple. With that in mind, we can start by looking at where her modifiers will mostly come from. I will be oversimplifying this because I don't want to spend too much time explaining every single detail. We will assume that all attacks are being used in the best-case scenario. With level 10 traces and keeping basic attack at level 6, Herta's modifiers is as follows. Ultimate is 200%, skill is 145%, basic attack is 140%, and follow-up attack is 40%. This goes without saying that we should focus on her basic attack, skill, and ultimate. The follow-up attack is simply a cherry on top. Next, we factor some extra stuff that can be utilized by Herta. Let's start with the gears. Another no-brainer is how good the Hunter set is for Herta. Herta's second Eidolon allows her to stack up to 15% free critical rate just from triggering her follow-up attacks. This synergizes well with the 2-turn 25% critical damage buff given by the Hunter's set whenever the wearer uses their ultimate. Herta's last Eidolon provides a 25% attack buff after using her ultimate. Note that this effect does not affect Herta's ultimate damage itself, because the buff only applies after the ultimate is performed. Still a pretty nice attack boost for her next attack or any follow-up attack that triggers within its 1-turn duration. Herta's A6 trace increases the damage of her ultimate against frozen enemies. Not exactly easy to utilize, but it is still something to factor in when building Herta. So let's quickly summarize that. 1. Herta gets a 25% critical damage buff for 2 turns when she uses her ultimate. 2. Herta gets a 20% attack buff for 1 turn after she uses her ultimate. 3. Herta increases her ultimate's damage by 20% against frozen enemies. It seems pretty clear where Herta's kit is centered around. Her ultimate. Now that we know how important it is for Herta to use her ultimate, we need to figure out the optimal attack rotation and optimal energy regeneration rate needed to at least reduce her ultimate cycle by 1 turn. Quick note, this is not exclusive to Herta or any character that needs to spam their ultimate. Typically, you'd want to reduce the ultimate cycle by 1 turn on the majority of the characters in the game. So, normally, without triggering any follow-up attack. Herta needs to do 3 skills and 1 basic attack to get enough energy for her ultimate. That's not good. This means she needs 4 turns to get her ultimate up. But if you get lucky with 3 follow-up attacks, it will gather enough energy as long as you do 3 skill casts on Herta. But needing to trigger 3 follow-up attacks within 3 turns can be unreliable. To make a completely reliable 3-turn cycle for Herta's ultimate, we need to give her a rope with energy regen as the main stat. As you can see, with an ER rope and using her skill 3 times in a row, Herta can guarantee 3-turn ultimate cycles. Now that we have our attack pattern, it is going to be easier to calculate how light cones directly affect Herta's performance in extreme detail. Because of certain annoying mechanics and how certain LCs only affect specific parts of a character's kit, I had to make a brand new calculator made specifically for HSR. As mentioned earlier in the disclaimer, the link to my calculator is in the video description. I won't explain how it works since that will take forever, but you are free to make a copy of it for personal use. Fun fact: Jinx once checked my Genshin Impact calculator long ago and managed to understand how it works. So yeah, surely anyone can use my HSR calculator too. Now back to the topic. I started by using my calculator to find the final damage of each attack. It factors in the base stats of the light cone and how some passives only specifically affect a part of the character's kit. For example, it is notable at the top that there's a huge extra damage when it comes to Herta's follow-up attacks. This is due to Before Dawn's passive that boosts follow-up attacks damage. I know that not many people want to keep looking at spreadsheets, so let's continue with the final comparisons. This is the stats of S1 Before Dawn if Herta is against enemies with HP above 50%. This is 3 skill casts in a row, and assumes that Herta triggers 2 follow attacks within each ultimate cycle. While this is the stats of S5 Breakfast if Herta is against enemies with HP above 50%. Now that my calculator allows me to go into extreme detail when calculating the damage output of a character, it finally solved the mystery as to why it felt like my Herta didn't lose much damage after swapping S1 Before Dawn to an S5 Breakfast. An S1 Before Dawn is only 11.82% stronger than S5 Breakfast if your substats aren't completely trash on Herta's gears. By the way, this context is important. The real strength of light cones varies, so please don't go around telling people that Before Dawn isn't that much stronger than Breakfast. This always depends on the character, their gears, and current substats. My calculator takes into account that you rolled attack, critical rate, and critical damage substats 6 times spread throughout the gears. This simply helps the calculator assume that the gears are decent. So, yeah, what this basically means is that you aren't exactly losing much damage by missing out on Before Dawn. As long as you superimpose your Breakfast and have decent gears, your Herta will be competitive. Let me bring up 2 more interesting things when it comes to Herta's light cone options. You probably have heard me saying bad things about the birth of the Self LC. Well, just look at this. As you can see, I even added a 3rd follow-up attack proc for Birth of the Self LC. Yet, S1 Before Dawn is still 21.5% stronger. Please do yourself a favor and do not waste resources on Birth of the Self LC. Just because Herta's face is in it doesn't mean it is her best in slot LC. The other interesting thing is Genius's Repose LC. An S5 Genius Repose is actually stronger than S1 Before Dawn by 0.67%, making the 2 LCs almost equal. But of course, the catch is that Genius's Repose needs to keep killing an enemy to maintain its critical damage buff. If it can't, then it is way weaker than Breakfast. Let's summarize what we learned so far. Herta's kit is centered around her ultimate. Being able to use her ultimate in short cycles means she will have great uptime for the buffs triggered from it. Whenever using Herta's ultimate, she will benefit from the 20% attack buff on her next attack. The Hunter set would provide 25% critical damage to her ultimate and to her attacks within the next 2 turns. We use an energy regen rope on her, and we only spam her skills to guarantee her ultimate every 3 turns. There is an exception to this where if Herta is able to trigger her follow-up attacks twice, you can replace one skill cast into a basic attack instead. This provides better damage if the enemy is already below 50% HP. Getting hit also provides energy which can lead to another conversion of a skill usage into a basic attack. Another exception is when Herta is able to kill 2 enemies and trigger 2 follow-up attacks. The total energy that comes from this is 30, meaning it allows a 2-turn ultimate cycle by using only 2 more skills. And speaking of follow-up attacks, Herta's talent can trigger multiple times in one instance, as long as there are more than one enemy that have their HP threshold go below 50%. This also emphasizes how important it is for Herta to be dealing damage with her ultimate and skill. Since Herta is spamming her skills for maximum energy regeneration, she will be considered SP negative. Therefore, a character that would work great with her is someone who is SP positive. Pela is a great option for this. Healers and shielders are typically SP positive as well. And speaking of synergy, March is a great shielder to team up with Herta. Her ultimate can be cast anytime and can freeze enemies. This is great because it means you could time March's ultimate before Herta's ultimate. This allows Herta to benefit from her A6 trace, which increases her ultimate's damage by 20% against frozen enemies. Personally, I don't think there is such a thing as best team or fixed team for a character, since it will always depend on the stage you are trying to clear. However, I do think Pela is a staple support for Herta. The two just have such a strong synergy. Overall, Herta is pretty average, but definitely not some bottom-tier character. If I were to give her a tier, it would be A. She works extremely well against certain matchups like fighting the Silvermane Lieutenant, Gepard and Bronya. Fighting the Automaton pair, Direwolf and Grizzly, is also nothing but child's play against Herta. Herta is one of the best picks when fighting the Abundant Eben Deer, as she trivializes the boss mechanics where it summons reinforcements almost every turn. Farming becomes super fast with erudition characters. Herta is also amazing with the elation path when farming in the simulated universe for light cone fodders. Personally, I think that being an erudition class is actually the biggest advantage of Herta. Sure, erudition characters do not have a very high damage ceiling on a single target, but can they produce decent single target damage? Yes, with enough investments. Just imagine this. Your erudition character has decent investments to deal decent single target damage, and is supported by 2 other characters. What will happen? I can tell you now. They will clear any content easily, unless you bring them to enemies that are not weak to their element. The logic behind this is that you just won't ever find any problem against mobs if you have an erudition character in the team. If they are dealing enough single target damage on a boss with 2 supports, then you will clear. But to be fair, is it always single target damage that you need? Looking at MOC 6 and above, fighting a single boss is actually quite rare. Most of the time, you will be fighting 2 bosses at a time. This means that an erudition character is technically doubling their damage. And that's it for now. Like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more content.